The waters west of the Philippine archipelago have become one of the most contested maritime spaces in the Indo-Pacific, revolving around overlapping claims of sovereignty, exclusive economic zone, EEZ rights, and strategic access. In particular, the region that Manila refers to as the West Philippine Sea, WPS, lies within what the Philippines considers its EEZ under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, and related domestic legislation, but which overlap significantly with Beijing's sweeping claims derived from the 9-dash line. China, while rejecting the 2016 arbitral award that invalidated many of its claims, has proceeded with maritime enforcement, Coast Guard operations, military patrols and a series of maritime paramilitary and logistical measures to strengthen its de facto control. Manila, for its part, has adopted a more assertive posture in recent years, bolstering maritime domain awareness, highlighting gray zone tactics used against its vessels and fishermen, enhancing partnerships with extra-regional powers, and seeking to mobilize diplomatic and legal instruments alongside defense modernization to resist Chinese encroachments. The dynamic has now reached a new dimension, what many analysts call a new front in the WPS. Over the past 12 months, multiple flashpoints have emerged. One such flashpoint involves the disputed shoal known internationally as Scarborough Shoal, Huangyan Islet in Chinese nomenclature, where China in September 2025 approved establishment of a so-called National Nature Reserve at the feature, which Manila regards as a unilateral attempt to convert a contested maritime space into a controlled zone under Chinese jurisdiction. The Chinese State Council's move was framed domestically as an ecological measure, but to the Philippines and other claimant states it appears as a legal and strategic maneuver to reinforce China's claim by institutionalizing a regime of control. This action has triggered strong protests from Manila, which points out that the shoal lies within its claimed EEZ and that the establishment of such an administrative facility without consultation violates the Philippine government's rights and undermines the 2016 arbitration award. In tandem, the Philippines has repeatedly accused the China Coast Guard (CCG) of water cannoning Philippine supply vessels or fishing boats in the WPS, of obstructing Manila's legitimate maritime activities, and of engaging in postings and encampments at features claimed by the Philippines. In one recent case, in May 2025, Philippine authorities reported that a research vessel being escorted by a Philippine bureau was struck with a powerful water cannon blast near another disputed sandbar, Sandy Cay, while conducting marine science operations. The Philippines described the incident as aggressive interference within its waters. Further, in August 2025, video footage was released by Manila showing a Chinese Coast Guard cutter and a Chinese Navy warship colliding with each other during a high-speed chase of a Philippine Coast Guard vessel near Scarborough Shoal. According to the Philippine side, the Chinese ship CCG 3104 na had pursued the Philippine vessel BRP Suluan, performed a risky maneuver and collided with the larger PLA Navy destroyer Guilin in the pursuit. Beijing acknowledged only that a confrontation took place and denied responsibility for the collision. Whatever the facts, the incident underscored how hazardous and unstable operations in the WPS have become, and heightened the risk of unintended escalation. In response, Manila has ramped up its defense diplomacy and maritime partnerships. The 7th edition of the bilateral maritime drills between the Philippines and the South China Sea's extra-regional ally the United States, in June 2025, took the form of near-shore operations, fire support drills, and surface vessel coordination, designed explicitly to raise interoperability and signal resolve. At the same time, Manila emphasizes adherence to international law, including UNCLOS, the Arbitration Award, and Philippine domestic law such as the Maritime Zones Act. At the 13th Association of Southeast Asian Nations U.S. Summit, October 2025, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. publicly denounced repeated, dangerous maneuvers and coercive tools by China in the WPS, and made clear that Manila remained firm, calm and resolute in defense of its rights. Manila also sets out that a binding code of conduct (COC) in the South China Sea remains its goal, and has sought to mobilize ASEAN, the US, India and other partners to strengthen rule-based governance of the maritime commons. Meanwhile, strongly emphasizing transparency, the Philippine government continues to publish photographic, video evidence of Chinese-Philippine encounters at sea under a strategy dubbed the Transparency Initiative. This effort aims to increase international awareness of China's gray zone tactics while parrying Beijing's narrative that such encounters are routine policing actions. On the Chinese side, Beijing maintains that its maritime operations in the region, including patrol sorties by the People's Liberation Army Navy, PLAN, and CCG, administrative law enforcement around occupied features, and cooperative mineral and fishery activities, are legitimate, defensive, and aimed at safeguarding sovereignty and maritime rights. In May 2025, China's Southern Theater Command announced joint sea air patrols in the South China Sea, explicitly citing the Philippines, deepening defense links with the US as, raising security risks, and scaled up its readiness accordingly. Chinese state media has portrayed Manila's moves to enhance external cooperation as provocations. At the same time, Beijing appears to be embracing a layered strategy of incremental control, so-called salami slicing, or cabbage wrapping tactics, where small, ostensibly legal or administrative steps and patrols gradually change facts on the ground, or water, without triggering full-scale conflict. For example, institutionalizing a nature reserve regime at Scarborough Shoal, placing maritime militia, fishing vessels under nominal civilian cover, and increasing PLA, CCG presence near disputed reefs all serve that purpose. Beijing thus may be willing to engage in diplomatic talk of a COC or ASEAN regional framework, but continues to press its claims operationally while expecting a tolerable level of friction rather than full confrontation. The maritime environment itself has become more crowded and contested. The WPS sits astride vital sea lanes, the waters of northwestern Luzon, the Bashi Channel near Taiwan, and the routes connecting the South China Sea to the Pacific. This strategic geography means that any localization of tension has the potential to spread into larger regional security dynamics, linking to the Taiwan Strait, US-China competition, and broader Indo-Pacific deterrence architecture. It also means that economic and resource dimensions intensify the dispute, fishing grounds, potential hydrocarbon and mineral deposits beneath the seabed, and coastal tourism and infrastructure values all factor in. Manila claims that China's actions not only limit Filipino fishermen's access to traditional fishing grounds but also threaten livelihoods and resource sovereignty. Meanwhile, Beijing claims it is engaged in marine conservation, ecological reserve creation, and sustainable use activities, but Manila and many outside observers suspect this to be cover for locking in administrative control. ASEAN members beyond the Philippines are increasingly wary of the precedent this dispute sets for maritime order, and extra-regional powers, e.g., the US, Australia, Japan, India, have expressed concern about freedom of navigation, unimpeded commerce, trillions of dollars pass through the South China Sea annually, and the risk that the WPS could become a tinderbox for larger military confrontation. The domestic politics of each claimant party also matter. In the Philippines, domestic public sentiment has become more attuned to the WPS issue. Filipino fishermen, archipelagic communities, and civil society groups have raised concerns about harassment, access denial, and environmental damage. The Marcos Jr. administration, in turn, signals that sovereignty remains non-negotiable, and uses international platforms to amplify its grievance. The Transparency Initiative represents a shift from earlier quieter diplomacy to a public and internationalized confrontation of Chinese tactics. Meanwhile, China's domestic posture emphasizes national sovereignty orthodoxy, evokes anti-intervention sentiment, and treats the South China Sea as integral to its core interests, making face-saving and deterrence calculations central to Beijing's approach. That said, analysts caution that China may prefer incremental gains rather than all-out war, and is attentive to global and regional repercussions including trade, diplomacy, and image. Nonetheless, a series of structural challenges and risks remain.